Requests for item 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 were not adopted. Moving to the work group addition, item number 1, to increase the state contribution rate to ERS retirement totaling $163.2 million in general revenue related funds was adopted.
So we're on page 5, members.
Work group addition number 2 at the bottom of the page to add a contingency rider to Article 9 to address pension-related needs at ERS for $295 million in general revenue-related funds was adopted. And this concludes the ERS packet.
Senator Huffman?
Yes, Madam Chair, members, basically, after listening to some of the concerns of the members, and, you know, I share the concerns, we put a bit more money, and I have to ask LBB to tell us exactly how much more since yesterday. Put a bit more into the contingency rider to give us even more latitude as we work to try to make the system actuarially sound. As I said yesterday, you know, it's a work in progress. The design of ERS and the system itself is fundamentally sound. It's returning good investments. It's just that because we have underfunded it, and because of new accounting rules under the GASB rules, we're in a situation where we have an unfunded liability. So I do think there are solutions, and the money that, if this committee will agree to that amount of money, I think it's enough that we can work to try to solve this problem. I do have a bill that I will be laying out at some point in the Senate. I welcome input from stakeholders and other members in crafting the solution. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Altai?
I'm trying to count to 10 before I...
Count to 10. Deep breath. You want to call somebody else first?
Deep breath. Okay, so LBB, tell me what the total number is the Senate is putting into ERS.
It would be the $458.2 million in this bill, plus an additional $670 in general revenue related funds that's already going to the ERS retirement.
What did they request above the base bill so that we do not continue to increase the liability of the unfunded $7.5 billion?
The agency's original request was an additional $377 million. However, they did revise this request based on their most recent actuarial valuation to $323.9 million in general revenue related funds.
So didn't we hear yesterday that we needed $500 million a year?
So that's the all funds number,
All funds.
excuse me.
Okay.
So that was revised to $461.5 million.
All right. We're at $7.5 billion unfunded liability, correct?
Yes, sir.
How much is that growing per year?
$500 million per year.
It's growing $500 million per year. Of the $500 per year it's growing, how much in this budget are we knocking down the $500 million?
I'm not sure how much this would reduce the unfunded liability growth.
No, we need to know that. We need to know, we've got $7.5 billion on the books right now. It's growing at $500 million a year. How much is the Senate knocking down the $500 million per year? When we leave here, is that number going to be growing, continue to grow?
I believe it would continue to grow if we're not contributing the actuarially sound contribution rate.
Okay, so the Senate is taking a stand, and I understand we're still going to work on this, but members, you can't cut $4.5 billion in taxes and leave here with a pension fund that has $7.5 billion unfunded liability, and that liability is continuing to grow. You cannot do that in good conscience. That is irresponsible. So we have got to have a plan in place. I understand we can't fix it this session, but we've still got 60 days of session, Madam Chair and Chairman Huffman, and I know you're committed to this, and I'm just...
And I want to add something, because there is enough money that's being allocated to make this system actuarially sound, this session, which would stop the bleeding. So I know, I'm telling you, there's a way to fix this with this amount of money.
I disagree somewhat. There may be enough money that you hear, maybe, to stop the bleeding. I don't see any money here to knock down the $7.5 billion. I'm just saying, members, I'm just one person, but you cannot, I don't know how anybody, any responsible individual can leave here and cut those kind of taxes and not meet this obligation. Now, you can't fix it overnight, but we need a plan in place to fix it at least over the next 10 years. We can't find $1 billion a year over the next 10 years to fix this? I just don't know how you do that. I do not know how a conservative or anybody else can send back $4.5 billion and leave this kind of liability on the books. It's doable. It's fixable. We just put in a plan in place to 6 years on facilities, Madam Chair. We need to tackle this session and have a reasonable plan. It's just common sense. I'm just begging the committee to look at this over the next 60 days and let's put a plan in place to address this. And I know Senator Huffman's committed to this. She's told me, this is just my frustration with the entire session, not at anyone on this panel. I want you to understand that. But this is number one. You have to fix it.
Senator Eltife, if I might, I don't disagree with you. We need to fix this, and you know it's going to get until we change something. We're going to be just pouring money every session, and it's going to grow. And I don't think Senator Huffman disagrees with you.
I know. I totally agree with you.
We need, and I'm not sure it's going to happen in the next 9 weeks, but there needs, and I believe Senator, in talking with Senator Huffman, her intent with her legislation, correct me if I'm wrong, Senator, is to, not do an interim study. It needs to be more significant than an interim study, and it needs to involve both chambers, and there needs to be a plan, like you said, a plan to fix this. And I'm not sure it's going to happen by the end of the session, but I hope by the end of the session we have established that there is going to be a true structure set up involving both houses that will recommend a way to face this. And we didn't get here overnight. We're not going to fix it overnight, but I agree with you, Senator Eltife, and I'm sorry to editorialize on that. But Senator Watson, you were next.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate what you just said, and I appreciate Senator Huffman and what she's saying, and I thank you, Senator Eltife. What this does is it looks at one big part, but just one part of what we need in order to get us to actuarially soundness. And
It's more than money. It's more than money.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And what we need to know, in my view, particularly with what Senator Eltife just pointed out, is what the rest of the plan is going to look like, so that we can then determine how we're going to get to actuarial soundness. And I don't disagree at all that there could be a multiple year look at this kind of thing. But we have to vote now on this, and I can't imagine that we're going to not make it actuarially sound now. We need to do that, and all we're looking at with this is just one part, because we're not looking at the rest of it. We don't know what the rest of the plan is. We don't know what additional money could be put in, as Senator Eltife points out, and I have real problem in doing that. Let me ask this question: are we considering increasing the state's contribution for fiscal year 14 and 15 through the supplemental? Because that would also help us get to actuarially soundness. And I suggested that, I think, in like the second meeting of the Finance Committee when we first got here this session. Are we looking at anything like that?
I'm sorry, my staff was asking me a question.
Well, my question is, are we considering increasing the state's contribution retroactively through the supplemental for fiscal year 14 and 15? The cost of that, if we went to 9.5% there, it would lower, it would lower the way it's looked at in terms of actuarial soundness. And because the actuaries would look at that as an increased payroll contribution, and we would be in a situation where we get closer. Are we looking at things like that as a part of getting to actuarial soundness? And when will we know?
It's just bills.
Are you asking me that question? Yes.
I'm asking anybody, I'm kind
I've
of
got
like,
one of the
anybody
plans.
has an answer.
Senator Huffman.
Thank you. One of the plans that I have in my hand to reach actuarial soundness includes a supplemental appropriation.
Of how much?
This is just one plan, but it would be, 196.5 million in GR. I don't know if the money is there.
I would
don't-
say that's her request. I
That's
wouldn't say it's
exactly,
in
so
there. That's
when
her
I say,
request.
one of the options, that's why I'm trying to make it real clear. And, you know, I have a bunch of options right here on my desk, and they can, I mean, there's only certain ways you can fix it. The state gives more, the employee gives more, you alter the benefits. And you try to infuse money as much as you can and then you run the numbers, and that's all you can do. So I can lay them all out to you.
And I think that needs to happen, and that's part of what my concern is voting even on this. And that is that this has an important part, a key ingredient, but it is only one ingredient, and we don't know what the rest might be. And if we vote on this, again, a key ingredient, and not know what the rest of it is, I'm not sure we're doing what we need to be doing.
Well, Senator Watson, as you know, this isn't the committee where we set policy on issues like ERS. We don't have the time, and I don't think it's the place to do it. We will do that in state affairs. We'll, we'll lay out the bill in committee. Before I do that, I will be happy to work with you and Senator L-Type to come up with solutions. I will lay out multiple ideas in committee, and people who are concerned can testify, and we'll try to come up with a solution. This is more money than even ERS asked for in their exceptional item. So I think we have a commitment from the committee and from the chairman to work on this and to put as much as we can under the circumstances to reach soundness. And I think this is a good start. And we have to work with the House, of course, as well. We know that. And it may end up at all, finally decide. I'm very supportive of in my Senate bill, I will include more than an interim study, but maybe a select committee over the interim to study this further. If the solution we reach this session is not, it's not perfect or not something that we all want to live with from now on, that'll be in my Senate bill. I was going to do it as a rider, but I think the Senate bill is probably as good a place as any to put that, so that, again, people can have input on how it's crafted. So, I'm saying that this is enough money, along with, however else we want to look at it, to reach soundness, and that's the goal.
I have a question for the Legislative Budget Board, and I don't, if Ursula's wherever she is, might be able to answer this. I think yesterday, because when we left here yesterday, I know Senator Huffman went to work on trying to figure out how much money would make us actuarially sound now. And we did, Senator Watson, since we met yesterday, infused how much more money are we putting in today? There she is. How much more money are we putting in today than we had in yesterday?
58.2 million in GR related.
Which took us to what the House has put in, right?
Essentially.
Okay, so, Ursula, how much, we talked about this last night, how much, is this getting close? I mean, and I know that changes probably by the hour, what actuarially soundness would be, but how close are we? With this new infusion of funds since yesterday, that is before you, how close are we to actuarial soundness?
Actuarial soundness, and actually, Emily's much more qualified to talk about this than I am.
We didn't need you.
You really didn't. What I would say is that it's highly dependent on how those funds are spent, on what the plan is. You
That's my
can,
point.
you know, and that is a critical element of soundness, is, you know, who is making the contribution, you know, is there a plan design change assumed? You know, all of those components work interactively on one another to determine whether or not you've gotten to a sound place. So I would say that, you know, a proposal could be evaluated for soundness, but a sum of money,
Yeah.
well, you might be able to say, yeah, that's probably enough money, depending on the actions you take to get you there. You know, we can't really definitively say it one way or the other.
Okay.
It's a
And Emily just
snapshot.
nodded, so I'm pretty sure I
Right.
did that okay.
Right, well, and, thank you. Senator Huffman is working on a plan, and last night Senator Huffman recommended that we recommend to you all that we at least get to, the same status as the House proposal, and that we continue working with a bill.
Yes.
And included in that bill, we are hoping, will be it needs to be worded so there's more than an interim study.
Yes.
This needs to be very clear that we mean business. I want Senator Eltife ranting on this one. We want a plan to do this. And I hope Senator Eltife, Senator Watson, I hope you'll be a part of that.
I hope I'll be
And
invited to be a part of it.
You will
Madam
be
Chair.
we want.
Other than in a public
great
setting like
minds.
this. when-
You're not recognized. We want great minds together to come up with a plan, and I want everyone to be included, because there is a way to do this. We didn't get here overnight, and we are not the only entity dealing with pension costs. Senator Bettencourt mentioned that yesterday. And we're gonna have to have a plan to get out of it. And I hope everybody will be a part of creating that plan, and I hope that, it's one that works. I'm finished. Senator Colcars?
Yes, ma'am, well said about, we're not the only ones dealing with it. It's probably the crisis of our generation, if you look at
Yes.
all states and what we have out there. We're in better shape than in some.